But in the meantime, we have another very special session that is very interesting for startups, and that is a discussion along the topic of are makerspaces inspiring innovation in startups? And for that, I have with me here Dr. Melanie Ruff. Hi, Melanie. Come on, join me.
Hello.
Melanie is part of the founder team of Hedy Production, a manufacturing marketplace. And she's a hardware enthusiast, a knowledge engineer, and calls herself an autodidact. Previously, she ran the Factory Hub in Vienna, a co-working space for hardware startups. She was also innovation and entrepreneurship expert at the University of Applied Sciences in St. Pölten. Thank you so much for doing that, Melanie. The space is yours.
Thank you, Hannes, and thank you for inviting me. We're going to start immediately because we only have 30 minutes and we have a great panel. Before we start with our discussion, I'm going to introduce you the guests for today. It is a warm welcome to Karim, founder and CEO of Happy Lab. If you don't know, the Happy Lab is a makerspace where you can easily realize your ideas and projects. And what I love most about it is you can do it around the clock. A warm welcome also to Franz from Grand Garage Linz. The name Grand Garage picks up the garage mythos. The garage is a birthplace of ideas, a place for experimentation, and a place for technology and innovation freaks. Welcome. And also a warm welcome to Linus Grabherr, country manager of Kreatize. Kreatize digitalizes the way custom parts are ordered and manufactured. With their smart solutions, they are proud supporters of the digital and agile world of manufacturers. A warm welcome also to you and welcome to Vienna. The first question goes to Karim. What kind of startups or makers come to the Happy Lab and what problems do they have?
Hello, nice that I can be here. I think, of course, a lot of hardware startups or hardware-related problems are being solved in Happy Lab, but a very diverse set of projects. So from smart devices to 3D printers, but also jewelry or skateboards or many different things. And often it starts with something you do for yourself. So many people that come to Makerspaces or to Happy Lab have an idea and want to solve that problem for themselves. And then they realize along the way that this is something that could be a product. And there are other people who have the same problem. And so I think this is like not the typical, what you would expect a typical startup in the beginning. But along the way, they, of course, then need more business plans and solve the engineering problems and get feedback. And so in the end, we have a lot of successful startups that at least in the beginning of their journey used Happy Lab to solve their problems.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I was one of the skateboard people building the prototypes at the Happy Lab. It was a great time back then. So another question to you. How much innovation comes from the crowd to support the startups?
This is something I really like about a place like Happy Lab, because from the beginning we tried to have a very diverse set of members. So they are not only technical people, but also creative people. And the mix is really what makes it interesting. So if you work at Happy Lab, even if you don't want it, at least before Corona, you met other people, you talked about what problem you're solving, and you got ideas, got tips. There are a lot of people with different skill sets, with experience, professionals in certain areas. So I think this is really valuable to also find maybe teammates to together start then the company or something like that. So I think the community of a makerspace is really what makes it worthwhile for a startup to go there, not only because of the machines. I mean, you can get the infrastructure at other places. You can rent machine time at the companies, but the crowd and the makerspace really makes it worthwhile to do the work yourself and to get the feedback, the valuable feedback from others.
Thank you. So the next question goes to Franz. Picking up the garage picture, how do I get my prototype quickly at your space?
Thank you for having me at first. Yes, how do I quickly get a prototype? That's not that easy question to answer. But in short, I'm intrigued to answer. You just come to us, we help you, you build it, you make it. But I also like to think about it like you have your own personal project at home. What do you need first? An idea. You need a place to work. You need the tools to work. You need maybe advice of a friend or a relative. Then you need legal advice, financial advice. And that's where the Grand Garage comes in. It's a place where you can get help for each part of this process. Stepping in, having an idea, we help you, we send you to our Nova zones. You can get a design sprint. You need tools. We can give you the right tools for your project, like 3D printing, robotics, stuff like this. You need legal advice. We also have network and connection to give you this advice, or to give you the basic information so you can work around it yourself. So we really try to make their own personal portfolio for the person that come to us and really try to revolve around every part of this process.
So I have another question for you.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, can I find partners at your space when I'm lacking skills for my prototype?
Yeah, that's also something really, put an eye on, because of course you don't always have the skills you want to build at first. So we have a host system that supports you if you have any questions about your related project, and if they don't have the knowledge, we have a network in the background to really point you at the right direction.
So thank you. The next question goes to Linus. Hello, Linus. I cannot see you.
I'm not Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Welcome to the stage, so to say.
Just one question, one remark. I'm not Linus. I'm Simon.
Simon, hello.
I am filling in for Linus. He is currently on a business trip, and I'm the CEO and founder of Kreatize. So I hope I can answer the question you had for Linus as well.
Then I'm gonna ask you, what are the biggest mistakes that hardware startups make in the beginning? Can you tell us?
Well, I think one of the things that hardware startups can make wrong, or like a big mistake, is thinking too small and really, thinking too small on the one side and then really trying to do everything on their own. So basically, when you look at big and very successful corporations in the hardware space, let's say Apple, for example, you see that they are not doing anything like in terms of manufacturing themselves, and they outsource everything to contract manufacturers, for example. You see the same thing in automotive. And what I see in a lot of hardware startups, they become so fascinated with manufacturing that they forget about the best design, the best sales and marketing strategy, the best financing to scale. So I'd really urge everyone to say, don't focus on manufacturing in the beginning. Nobody cares if you have the best knowledge in CNC manufacturing. That's where we come in. That's like really outsource this to the experts and try to think big and try to try to get basically the right idea to the market as soon as possible, as fast as possible, and then iterate on that. That's what we see a lot, and this is where we help hardware startups, the most.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and you are doing a great job. So people who don't know Kreatize should go to their website. I have another question for you. How does the transition from Series O work with Kreatize, so the first batch?
Well, yeah. In general, we recommend hardware startups, to come to us in the concept phase. We have experts from Apple, from Dell, and then from other leading companies that basically take hardware startups from the concept phase to prototype phase over to until the end to ramp up. And we have basically a dedicated technical account manager and a dedicated account manager that basically helps the startup and the company or the team to make their project successfully. And obviously, like from the first prototype, we are using prototyping processes like 3D printing and other or milling and turning. And then when we are talking then about ramp up, we help the engineers there. What we call it's called design for manufacturing. So we look at the part and look or the parts and look what kind of processes should we use in a large volume to optimize for cost later on. So then we help the startup to identify which is the actual large series process later on.
Thank you for the insights. I give over to Karim again. And I have another question to you. What is the machine most used in your makerspace? We lost Karim for a moment.
I would say, sorry, I have to say it's the laser cutter. I think most of such spaces would agree. And I think the reason is because you can do so many different things with it, from doing a prototype out of cardboard to test some idea out, to the finished jewelry you sell somewhere. So I think the big range of applications is and the easy to use. But basically all our digital fabrication tools, what we Makerspaces, we at Happy Lab have are so easy to use, so accessible to normal people. So what I always like to say is that we want to make like normal people should be able to think about they can do that themselves, and it's easy to learn, just maybe half an hour of a crash course, and then you can start doing. So at least with the digital fabrication tools, this is what we want to achieve. Of course, then if you have a big CNC milling machine, then it won't be that half hour, but even that gets more accessible. And if you later go to a manufacturer, you have at least a sense what he or she's talking about, because you have used maybe simpler machines already yourself. So I think this is also to make the manufacturing more accessible, even though we know that maybe the machines you learn at the Makerspace are not the machines that are used for the manufacturing. It gets more accessible and you get to know the process.
So half an hour and I'm a pro in laser cutting. That's great to hear. So half an hour, what I'm learning there? In
our crash courses, you're basically just learn to not hurt yourself, to not break the machine, and to have a first little thing you can do yourself. So in all our introductory courses, we try to do it this way and not the other way around, which is often done in schools or universities, that you have a lot of theoretical knowledge at first, and maybe then at the end you are allowed to do some practical work. We do it the other way around. So because we think all the theoretical background, of course, it's important, but if you're interested and if you need it, you will learn it afterwards. But it's like more fun to get started right away.
Thank you. I remember being very afraid of the milling machine. And it took us more than half an hour to manage to use it. So thank you. I hand over to Franz. And I'm wondering what I'm learning at your space in half an hour.
Wow. Good question. I also tend to go to the laser cutting example, like Karim. We have the same infrastructure here. But what I can tell you, for example, is we have a robotics lab where I can really in half an hour, get the knowledge to move a robot and to program a robot and to really get the basics of robot programming. So at first you learn the moves. We call this robot the cobot. It's a collaborative robot. You can have it beside your table. You can start with linear movements. Then you can get into more complex movements, into paletting examples. And of course, we have many different applications for it. So in this, you gain the knowledge to think in kind of a 3D sense for robotic programming and programming in the classical sense at the same time, and this in half an hour. So I think that's that's rather an interesting topic. It's such a short time. It was really hard to build this workshop.
Yeah, and if I am well informed, you also have schools using your space. How does this work?
We have what, pardon?
Schools and younger people using your space. How does this work?
Yeah, that's interesting. We have the CAP Future program where young and interested adults can learn this type of workshops. They can visit nearly every workshop we have here in our house. That's like 3D printing, laser cutting. They can also get a little bit of insight into CNC milling and more complex methods of working. And we really like to get into the minds of the young people to really get them into our ecosystem of ideas and knowledge. Yeah, they're really a big part of our production, and a few of them are already working in our infrastructure.
Thank you. And Simon, so now I have the prototype built in the Gros Garage or at the Happy Lab. What kind of files do I need when I want to order at your platform?
Well, we take anything. We are working with established companies that have files from the 60s and 70s, almost drawn by hand, and also hardware, like, very innovative hardware companies that provide step files and 2D drawings. I think in general for us, it's more about it goes beyond the files, because we're not just an e-commerce shop where you basically upload your part and then they produce anything or something for you that might fit or might not fit. In reality, manufacturing is a little bit more complex, especially when you build a product on large scale. So what we're doing is we're sitting down with the team and really try to understand the requirements of this this project and this part or the parts they request, and because there are so many other things that you cannot put on a step file or on a 2D drawings that you need to know. For example, how fast do you want to scale up? What is important for you in terms of the supply chain? Do you want to produce it in Europe, or do you want to produce it more over in China? What is more important, supply chain security or lower costs? Who does warehousing? How does the quality inspection look like? All of these things we should know to actually tell you what's the best next step for you to go. It sounds a little bit complex, and probably lots of people like to hear, you just upload it and produce it. But I think if you do that, your project is doomed to fail, because you are not considering all of the other factors that you need to consider to make your hardware business successful.
Yeah, and can you maybe tell us how do people react when you tell them there is a mistake in their drawings?
Well, we have that often, and we always say, look, this happens to the very best companies in Germany and Austria, like really the leading mechanical engineering companies. When we get files and drawings from them, we always say, well, might we suggest something different, because here's something missing? And they react quite positively, because in the end they understand if the quality of the input and the quality of the drawing is improved, then also the quality of the part and the series production is better. So I think everybody understands it, but I think there's no need to be ashamed because it really happens to the very best companies, and just be open about it. Yeah, so far the reaction was very positive, and we continue on that road. Because in the end, I think it's really important to make sure that we continue to deliver the highest quality, and the highest quality is only possible, especially in a digitized world, if you standardize your requirements in the best possible way. And that starts with a very good PDF drawing and a step file.
Thank you, Simon. Karim, the next question to you. What was the craziest prototype ever built in the Happy Lab?
This is an interesting question. Most of the prototypes are built during the night, and I'm not always there, so there might be some crazy stuff that I haven't seen myself. I mean, there are so diverse projects, from let's say adult toys to robots. We had one time a guy that wanted to build a golf bag that can follow him on the golf course. So this was also some interesting idea. And yeah, so interesting are also always the more artsy, let's call it, projects. So we had one student once 3D printing with a laser cutter. She wanted to do that, and she laser cut sugar, and so when the sugar melted layer by layer, she built a structure, and in the end it was a candy for your tea. So stuff like that is also always like interesting. But maybe I should go more often there during the night and catch the really crazy stuff.
I would recommend that, being there during the night. So the same question to Franz. What's your craziest prototype built in the Grow Garage?
Ooh, I really have to think, because I'm not a very long garage right now, but the most interesting prototype, I have to say, I saw was the Polyvent project. I don't know if you know it, but there was a project of students, three students from Australia and from Europe, who tried to build a ventilator for the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. A ventilator that costs really less money than a normal one, who can be applied with stuff you can easily buy online or in workshops in your country, and really assemble yourself. So I think that was one of the most interesting projects I followed. They came here, one from Australia. They worked here for 1 week, night and day, to build this, and in the end they were successful. And that was really one of the most interesting, or I have to say most crazy things, because it was no problem getting them here, getting the funding, really help them in working, and really, implement them in our own infrastructure and help them with our knowledge and infrastructure. So it was kind of a get-together and a really amazing experience, I have to say.
So thank you. I'm wondering, Simon, did you ever have say no to a project on your platform because it was too crazy to build?
Well, we say no to defense projects for one, because of ethical reasons. But on the other side, we say no if we see that there's not. If we cannot help the customer, or if the volume is too low, right? If you come to us and you say, I want to build one part, and that's going to be it for the next 3 years, then our approach and the stuff that we are doing for you, with all the technical experience and is not the right approach. So it's more catered to either hardware startups that really think big and also, in terms of funding are well funded, or basically established companies that have a good forecast into what kind of demand they will have in the future. I mean, it sounds a little bit now unfair, but I think it really is important to understand if you want to build a successful hardware business, you need to have like a proper funding in place, because hardware just requires way more capital than a software company, right? A software company you can literally build in your living room with a couple of laptops, right? You probably need 5,000 euros if you want to start a software company. If you start a hardware company, your first prototypes will probably cost you, depending on what you're doing, a couple of 10,000 euros to 100,000 or even more, right? Depending on if you're building a rocket that shoots up in the sky or if you're building a headset or whatever. But it's going to be way more expensive. And I think that's something that I really want to urge as well, everyone to think about, from investors to founders, that really we need more capital in there, and founders should not be afraid to ask for way more capital if they are funding or if they start a hardware business.
Yeah, thank you. We only have 10 minutes left, so I guess it's time for the audience. Are there questions to our panel? So I guess we have to wait. Okay, no question at the moment. Then I'm asking Karim. I have another interesting thing. Did you ever have to say no to a project because it was too dangerous, or I don't know, too complicated to build, or the wrong place?
I don't remember saying no to anyone. Of course, there are projects that you can't realize in our space because we don't have the right machines, or we don't have the experience for it. In such situations, we always try to, in our network, find other places, other people, other companies where it might be possible to do that. But I mean, the principle is how to make almost anything, and we try to do almost anything. Yeah.
I like that approach. Franz, the same question. Did you ever have to say no to a project because it was too dangerous for all the others in your space, or because it was maybe too big for your space?
Oh, hello. I really have to say the same thing as Karim. I can't remember a project that was too dangerous, but I can remember one or two projects where we couldn't realize it. But the reason for this was that it would have been unfair for the other members of our space, because they involved a lot of time on machinery, way more time that we could provide them with, to not have the other members of our infrastructure really delayed in their own work. We have this contract of fair use we really want to uphold. You can, of course, rent out some time on machines, but if it's a matter of, please, I have to produce 10,000, I don't know, rings on a 3D printer or on our infrastructure, 3D printers, we really have to say, I'm sorry, we can't really provide this amount in this short of time, but we really want to place them in the right direction, maybe to another company that can really help them with this kind of project.
Thank you. And Simon, did you ever have to say no and hand over to a competitor?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I again, if you want to, if you're, for example, a private company, a private customer, we're also not serving, we're only serving companies. Then we recommend one of our partners that are in our network, for example, or a competitor. And also, we just had a couple of companies where we worked with them, but we saw that we are not developing in a good way. So we basically handed the contact to our suppliers, and that worked fine because we are really focused on working with basically the companies that can benefit the most from our services. Yeah.
Thank you. We are close to the end. Thanks to you, to your honest answers and your great insights. And I make a last round. Where can we reach you and where can we reach your services? And maybe, Simon, you start and we go backwards.
Yes, so reach me. I don't know, personally, you can find me on LinkedIn, Simon Tüchelmann, and on Twitter, Simty. And our services, you can go to Kreatize.com and can request a demo, and we will look at your project and hopefully can help you.
Thank you. Franz, where can we reach you?
Same thing again, the Grand Garage EU, of course. You can log in, write us directly an email. You can call our office. The numbers are also on the website. And of course, you can always reach me, LinkedIn, or of course on my private number that is also on the website.
Thank you. And Karim, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Where can I reach you?
You go to our website, happylab.at, and there you can, probably the first thing you do is book a tour. We used to do them without booking, but the situation doesn't allow it otherwise. So you can book a slot where you can make a visit, have a look at our space, talk to our lab managers, and get your project started. But you can also just register, sign up, do an online course on the website, and might just drop in for some laser cutting if you're motivated.
So thank you so much. We are done for today.